Hi everyone, in this video you're going to learn how to create a fulcrum for your leveler. So this is a 4-part video series, so in which each video I'm going to teach you, for the first 3 I'm going to teach you how to create a fulcrum, how to create a weight, and how to create your effort, arrows and labels, and then your handle, and then the assembly. So essentially it's a 5-part video. So please stay on the lookout for all of the 5 parts. And so this is part 1. So let's get into the video. This is how your fulcrum is going to look like. Remember, make sure you note down every single measurement that I'm going to tell you in this video, as they are very important for your handles so that it perfectly fits in every groove that you form. So let's start off by creating a new part studio. So that's going to be on their bottom bar. So I'm going to click on the check where it's going to say insert new element. Then I'm going to create a new part studio. Um, okay, yeah, there we go, it's creating now. So I'm going to right click and click on rename. I'm going to label it Fulcrum. I'm going to label it tutorial, but you don't need to label it that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by creating a sketch on my front plane. So I right click and click on sketch. I'm going to right click and go to view normal sketch plane. Then I'm going to create an arrow. It doesn't need to be that precise, it can just be very brief. So I'm going to draw my line here to here, then here, then here, then here. So basically the only restrictions for your base arrow is that it needs, your first baseline needs to be on the mark where the right plane makes, so it needs to be on this line, and your top point of the arrow needs to be on this line. That's basically the only restrictions you need. Now we're going to start constraining. So I'm going to go to my constraints button. I'm going to click on vertical constraint, and I'm going to vertically constrain both of these. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them equal. I'm going to make make these two equal. Then I'm going to make these two equal. Remember, it's very important that you do them separately so that they are in separate pairs. Two of these have the same dimensions and two of these have the same dimensions. Otherwise, it's going to be all wonky. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to dimension it. I'm going to make my base 30. I'm going to make my sides 40. And notice how it automatically adjusts for both sides, as they need to sort of, they're in equal constraints, so they're going to dimension. So I'm going to make it the inwards thing sort of 25. So as you can see here, it went inwards. So that only happens when your point that you drew is much much lower than it needs to be. So since this is not specifically constrained, okay, I'm going to first hover over this and click on delete sketch entity. Or, okay, I'm going to delete these 2 lines just because they look very terrible. I mean, there are some ways that you can most likely fix them, but for the sake of this video and clarity, I'm just going to redraw them. So make sure you always draw your points high enough. So then I'm going to dimension them to 25. Oops, I forgot the equal constraint. So did I? Okay, I'm gonna make this equal. Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, that's okay. So this is all that you need to do for your arrow base. Then I'm going to click the green check button, and I'm going to rename the sketch. Right click and rename it base of arrow. Base sketch of Fulcrum. So Fulcrum is obviously my part that I'm going to be creating, so that's why I said Fulcrum. So I'm going to first click on the arrow. I'm going to click on extrude, and I'm going to make sure it's on new. And I want the depth to be 25 millimeters. If you haven't noticed already, I'm always working with millimeters now, so please make sure your units are in millimeters. So then I'm going to click the green check button, and I'm going to check to make sure that the extrusion was successful by going into isometric. Yay, it's perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a corner rectangle up here, like right here, so I can revolve it around. So basically how that's going to look like is it's going to be this little circle over here. So you see this little cylinder that is arcing over your fulcrum. That's what the small rectangle is going to create. So I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to make a sketch on this plane. You can either do it on the left or the right. I prefer the right. So I'm going to make my corner rectangle from this point to the second point. And don't worry about the non-precision with the dimensioning. We can fix that. We're going to go to dimension, and we're going to make this 1 millimeter. Remember, always note down all of your measurements that you're using so that you can make sure that the grooves fit perfectly, so that the holes fit perfectly in the grooves. So, holes fit perfectly in the grooves. Okay. Um, we're going to revolve this now. So this is all this for the sketch. I'm going to go to revolve. I'm going to select the rectangle, and it's going to ask for a revolve axis. So when I click on revolve axis, the whole sketch becomes blank. Like it's still selected. If you're in faces and sketch regions to revolve, it's going to ask for the rectangle because we're revolving the rectangle, right? But when we go to revolve axis, it's just asking for a singular line that it wants to revolve around. So I'm going to choose the top line. And then I want to make sure my merge scope is with part 1, which is the base arrow. This part 1 is the arrow, like the base arrow, or this arrow. And I also want to make sure that it's an add, so that this revolution can be added onto the part. So it's still all one part. So then I'm going to click the green check button, and there we go. So I'm going to go back into isometric, and I'm going to hide all of my planes so that it's a bit more clear about this step. Now this step can be a bit challenging if you don't follow it carefully. So I'm going to now label it. So if you go back to my base, my model, if I go into isometric, you can see that I have it labeled. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to make a new sketch on the front of this arrow. Then I'm going to go to the text option. I'm going to click and expand, and then it's going to give me this pop-up. I'm going to type in Fulcrum and click the green check button. So as you can see here, it extends very large. So don't be worried about this. It's completely fine. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to dimension the top edge to 25 millimeters. It's going to be massively smaller, don't worry. So now that that's done, let's go back and recenter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come out, and I'm going to make this bottom line vertical so that it rotates the text face to face here, not like horizontal, but to face vertical. Remember that it's only going to show you it for the bottom line. So when you hover over your the bottom construction line of your text, it's going to give you this horizontal constraint. Right click and click on delete. Unselect your baseline. Just only make sure you're selecting the constraint. Otherwise, it's going to ask you to delete 2. You only want to delete 1. So click on delete sketch entity, and then go into your constraints and click on vertical constraint and click make this vertical. So there we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to center your text. So we're going to go into dimensions, make this construction line, make the distance between the construction line to the edge of this arrow to, yeah, I wanted to make it 12 millimeters, sorry. So if I make it 12 millimeters, then how I'm going to sort of make my text a bit larger. It seems a bit too small, so I'm going to make it 30. And as you can see here, the distance between the base of the text and the base of the arrow is not very, it's too close. So I'm going to select this text line, the construction line, to the bottom of this arrow. Make sure it highlights orange. Then I'm going to make the distance 10 millimeters, so it moves up. There we go. So this is what we want. I'm going to finish my sketch. So I'm going to go back to my front plane, and I'm only going to select the text. Only going to select the text. I misspoke before. I only want to select this text. Then I'm going to click on extrude. It should give you this really weird color. That's how you know. So make sure it's an add. We are going to go to isometric to make sure. Why is this acting so weird? This is strange. Yeah, there you go. So you just want to make sure you only select the fulcrum, right? Otherwise, it's going to extrude the entire face, which is not what we want. So I want the extrusion depth to not be this large, obviously. I'm going to make the extrusion depth 3 millimeters. Just going to make it this small. Then you're going to click the green check, and that's how you make your fulcrum piece. So what I actually want to do before I let you guys go is I want you to change the color of this fulcrum. Remember, we're going to be assembling in the same document, so it's going to get a little confusing with all of the parts. So it's better to just color code. So I'm going to go to my parts tab, right click, and first of all rename it to fulcrum. Then I'm going to right click and click on edit appearance. I'm going to make it this nice purple color. So whenever I see a purple color, I know it's got to be the fulcrum. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions, as always, please do put them down in the comments and I'll be sure to get back to you on them in the next video. Thank you. Bye.